Waiting for person. So, can we start? I don't know if all the presenters. Of course, of course. So, Rachel, we'll start now, and hopefully we have other panelists join us in the along the line. So, are you there? Okay. So, good morning, everyone, and I welcome to our panel titled Water and Marine Life in Historical and Contemporary Perspective, Part 1. So I want to thank everyone for finding the time to this platform this morning. We have 4 discussants on this panel, and the first person is Andrew Joseph. Andrew, who will be speaking on the River Benue, its tributaries, and the social economic development of the people of Kwande, Benue State, a study of River Amere Nkuriri and River Amere Uvesin. So we don't have him here now, so I hope he'll join us along the line. So the second speaker is Rachel Maina, so from University of Wisconsin-Madison, with the title of a paper, "The Sea as a Pluriverse in Yoven Owonos, the Dragon's Fly." So the third presenter is Olarotimi Ogungbemi, who will be speaking on water intimacies, colonial legacies, environmental justice, and aquatic life in Lagos. And of course, the last speaker, Akiniyi Abioye Oyewusi, who will be speaking on the Atlas Cove attack of 2029, lessons in Nigeria critical maritime asset security. So without wasting much of our time, we only have, okay, I think she's back. So Rachel, if you're there, please, it's time to, let's have your presentation now. Thank you. Rachel, can you send her a message?
Fine.
Okay, please, can we have your presentation now? She's back.
And I can hear you. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
please. Yeah, please go ahead.
Hello.
Please go ahead. We can hear you now. Okay, she's trying to share a screen. Rachel?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, please go ahead and have, let's have the paper presented.
Can I share the screen?
Yeah, sure, please.
Hello?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, I am doing it then.
Okay.
So, good morning. My name is Rachel Maina. My name is Rachel Maina, the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I'm presenting my paper titled "The Sea as a Pluriverse: Yvonne O'Wall's The Dragonfly Sea, Maritime Entanglements, Distributed Agency, and Spiritual Geographies." So just a synopsis, the Dragonfly Sea story starts with Ayana, who is a solitary girl on Party Island, Kenya, who is socially isolated due to her mother Munira's ostracized pregnancy outside of marriage. A sailor called the Muhyiddin enters their lives and becomes a father figure to Ayana, providing a sense of belonging. And the island, which is a real island, actually, on Pate Island, which is also the location of my PhD research, and it's inhabited.
You want to write your own note. Then I can. Rachel, are you still there?
I'm still there. I
Yeah,
mean,
please go ahead now. And we can see your slide.
yeah, I stopped sharing. Can you see them now?
Not yet. Okay, that's
I'm
good.
sharing. Okay. So I want to go back. So I was sharing a synopsis of the Dragonfly Sea, which focuses on Ayana, a solitary girl on Pate Island. And she's selected as a descendant of the ancient Chinese shipwrecked sailors and given the chance to study in China. And her journey to the Far East becomes a central part of her quest for self-understanding, belonging, and love as she navigates new cultures and relationships. Today, I'll be discussing how Yvonne Wall's The Dragonfly Sea reimagines the Indian Ocean, not merely as a setting, or a backdrop or a metaphor, but as a reverse. That is a space teeming with many coexisting worlds, human, non-human, spiritual, historical, and so on. So we'll explore how this novel uses the sea as a deeply relational, affective, ontological space that challenges extractive or colonial narratives of maritime life. So let's begin by considering the sea not as a static setting, but as a living world in its own right. And this talk draws on Arturo Escobar's concept of pluribus, like I've already mentioned. Um, in this model, there is no one universal world or worldview, but rather a multiplicity of ways of knowing, being, and relating. And in the Dragonfly Sea, the Indian Ocean becomes such a pluriversal space, a seascape that entangles history, ecology, affect, and spirit. So Award, who is a Kenyan writer, doesn't just write about the sea. She listens to it, animates it, and gives it voice. So I read the novel not as an island story, as some critics suggest, but as a maritime one, with the sea as the center of life and meaning making. So, like I've already mentioned, basing this presentation on Arturo Escobar's concept of the pluriverse, and it is a concept that arises from decolonial theory and indigenous thought. So, Escobar defines the pluriverse as a world where many worlds fit. So, this concept offers a way to think beyond singular modernist ontologies, particularly Eurocentric notions of mastery over nature. Then I also draw on Hetan Iheka's aesthetics of proximity as presented in his work, Naturalizing Africa. And he argues that post-colonial literature often blurs distinctions between humans and non-humans, and he emphasizes distributed agency, that is, agency that is shared or distributed among humans, animals, plants, objects, and ecological forces. And in distinction, that is the blurred the boundaries between human and non-human, nature and culture, then multi-species presence, that is for grounding the presence of multiple species, human and non-human, as coexisting, interacting, and sharing, shaping shared worlds. And then there is interspecies relationality, which is the focus of relationships, whether ethical, material, or symbolic, between species. So the Indian Ocean in the Dragonfly Sea is not just a place. It's a teacher, it's a force, it's an archive, and it is a character. The protagonist, Ayana's coming of age, is not just shaped by her mother, or mentors, or the school she attends, but also by her intimate relationship with the sea. So the novel charts a maritime geography spanning from Pate Island to Zemen in China and beyond, tracing centuries of cultural exchange, migration, and spiritual interaction. So the sea is where Ayana learns to dive, to feel, to read the world, and it brings her adoptive father within, also sends her to China, and it eventually calls her back. So then when we think of distributed, um, what I've just described makes the ocean or the sea constitutive, not merely a container for human stories, but a co-writer of them. So when we think of distributed agency, one of the most compelling aspects of a world's narrative is how it grants agency to non-humans. The sea talks. It asks Ayana repeatedly, "Who are you?" It does so in Swahili and later in Chinese, Nishishe. It remembers, it mourns, and haunts. Those two are alive. For example, shipbuilder Mehdi teaches the boats that he makes to remember fire and drowning. So embedding knowledge into their hulls. The idea is that the vessel will remember how to survive in a future crisis in the seas. Then storms have intention. They are not just narrative devices, they are moral agents. They test characters, revealing weaknesses and initiating transformation. For instance, when Ayana embarks on her journey across the Indian Ocean, the storm she encounters serves as a rite of passage. It stripes away her sense of certainty and forces her into confrontation with her own fears, desires, and identity. Similarly, storms disrupt illusions of control for other characters, forcing them to reckon with loss, betrayal, or belonging. Thus, in the Dragonfly Sea, the storm embodies the ocean's agency, and the watch is lost during the storm, and it peaks in the sea. It's later found, of course. So the storms embody the ocean's agency, aligning with the Eka's idea of distributed agency and interspecies relationality. So the sea is not a passive backdrop, but a character with will and judgment. So Warcraft storms are intentional forces of reckoning, transformation, narrative propulsion, testing human fragility against the vastness and indifference, or perhaps even judgment of the more than human world. So human and non-human symbiosis. I've already mentioned how Ayana is shaped by the sea, not just metaphorically, but materially as well. So her early education is in the resource zone, the beach, the mangroves, the tides, the swells. She learns to read the sea by feel, not by maps. Then Mehdi, the weed whistler, the shipbuilder, can summon weeds by melody, can sing and summon weeds. Birds, dragonflies, and even dolphins offer direction and companionship in this sea. We also encounter the Sierra a prehistoric fish that has returned to the surface as a reminder that the sea still holds ancient life, not just what we know now, even life that existed before. So a world constructs a vision of symbiotic interdependence, where humans are not at the top of a hierarchy, but woven into the web of the ocean's multi-species ecology. Then we have spiritscapes. So in a world, the spiritual and ecological are not separate domains. They overlap. Genes whisper from the ocean floor. Ayana hears them but never answers. She wails with them, but she refuses possession. On Pate Island, and in Swahili land, people believe that spirits dwell in promontories, reefs, and even ships. Some believe that Munira, Ayana's mother, has called upon spirits for protection. Spirits in this novel are not just belief systems, they are actors, fully integrated into the narrative's logic. This reflects the Swahili oceanic cosmology, where divine, human, and spirit worlds overlap. Here, the sea is a spiritual entity and holds not only life, but lineage, justice, and mystery. Then there is violence on the sea. So a world is careful to show the sea's ambivalence. It is nurturing, like we've seen with Ayana, but also violent. We see piracy, both historical and contemporary. For example, the MV Bolon, the ship that takes Ayana from the Kenyan coast to China, is attacked off the Somali coast. because of piracy. There is ecological exploitation, which includes bottom trawling, overfishing, and smuggling of animals. There is human exploitation, trafficking, forced labor, and gendered violence. So the sea becomes a grave. It's full of shipwrecks, bodies, broken vessels, and so on. But the sea also responds through storms, sickness, and haunting. So the violence in this seascape is not hidden. It's rendered as part of the sea's memory. It's a kind of maritime archive of trauma. Then the shipscape. So a world devotes deep attention to ships, not as as background props, but as relational spaces. Then the MV Kikrui, which is later renamed Golang, is not just a cargo ship; it's a grieving character. It shelters Jeans, who is Captain Sorrow. He had lost his wife, and the ship also eventually dies a political death when the captain fall with the Chinese authorities, and they decide to get rid of the ship. So it eventually dies a political death. So the shipscape becomes a floating world, which is what Paul Gilroy calls a micropolitical system in motion. And then on board, love emerges. For example, Ayana and the captain, Leijin, have this love affair starting. There are other, passengers who fall in love. Trauma resurfaces, like Leijin's grief, and new communities form. Friendships are formed. Ships in this novel have agency, history, and even ghosts. They connect land and sea, past and present, East Africa and China. Now I'm almost coming to the end of my presentation. So reframing the Indian Ocean. So with all this in mind, how do we reframe the Indian Ocean? A world pushes us to abandon imperial cartographies. The ocean is not Indian alone. You know. Scholars now use terms like the African Sea or the Swahili Seas to decenter Euro or Asian centric naming. For war, the sea is a relational field. It's filled with memory, labor, loss, and love. It's not just a body of water or a prop or just a background. It's not an empty route of empire or trade. It's a cohabited space, one where African, Islamic, Chinese, and so on, and non-human agents encounter one another. So this is a pluriverse in motion. Many worldviews, many beings, one sea. So I conclude. In closing, the Dragonfly Sea offers a powerful reimagining of oceanic space. The world uses the aesthetics of proximity to dissolve binary divisions between nature and culture, human and non-human, spirit and matter. So the Indian Ocean emerges not as a static resource, but a co-creator of identity, memory, and meaning. And by reading the sea as a pluriverse, we begin to see that it's not just geography, it's epistemology. It teaches, shapes, and challenges. And in an age of ecological collapse and extractive violence, a world's novel asks us to listen more carefully to the sea and to everything that moves through it. So thank you. Asante sana.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Since we don't have other presenters available here with us, so I want us to take a reflection on what Rachel has presented to us. So first, I want to give a kind of ideas that I draw from Rachel's work. So I'm glad that even in the literary circle, scholars are trying to push the boundary of scholarship beyond human affairs, right? So just as even in the historical
Yes.
scholarship as well, we often assume that history has to do with humans, right? So as if humans alone occupy this ecosystem. So we are at the point that we're trying to engage other ecological beings, including waters, including animals, and of course, how they also intersect with humans' affair. So I'm very glad that even in the literary circle, we have scholars who are also thinking along the line of giving agency to non-human actors that occupy this cosmos. And I'm very glad the fact that you also brought up the question of agency, right? So, which has also been a very critical question in terms of who do we give agency to? And of course, on what parameters do we assign agency? Does agency belongs to human alone, or other ecological beings also play a role in human affair? So I'm very glad that you also point to on that aspect. So I don't know if you have audience in the house. If you have any question regarding what Rachel has just presented, please you can go ahead and make your comments. Okay, please go ahead.
Hi, Rachel. Thank you so much for the fascinating work. Yeah, and thank you again for the thinking the concept of agency to extend it beyond, humans to really look at, I mean, of course, scholars have been looking at animals, now we're looking at ocean, body water as, like agents actors as well, right?
Yes.
My, maybe not a question, but like probably just a statement is for us to like, I mean, if you're what, how did you see issue of slavery? Especially thinking about the Middle Passage, how the ocean also became part of transatlantic, Indian Oceanic, slavery movement or dead bodies and this whole issue of death, social death, or what have you. How do you think, or how do you connect all these different trajectories of human history that also has to do a lot with, the ocean, right? How the ocean has become a part of the thinking enslavement, right? For scholars or for historians, even for literary scholars as well. What do you see? Do you see any connection with that? What sort of stories can we tell? Thinking about this again, this sort of, history of slavery that surrounds body of water, particularly in that sense.
Okay, so I talked about violence on the sea, which should, because this is the Indian Ocean, I'm sure the Atlantic Ocean has more memory in terms of slavery. Not that the Indian Ocean, there was no slavery practiced. So there is violence on the sea, and what is, and let me give a background. The novel is based on a historical. It's more of a legend that there was a Chinese ship that sank off the coast of Paten, and then some Chinese sailors were able to escape. They survived, and they swam to Pate Island, married some married Swahili women, and we have actual descendants. Actually, Ayana is based on a real person, a young woman named Momaka, who lived on Pate Island. She was discovered by the Chinese. She was given a scholarship to study in China. I think currently she's still in China, but she got her bachelor's and PhD, and she's now Chinese traditional medicine doctor. So it's based on a real story. And the people of Pate Island will tell you about the ship, and that's part of my PhD research. I'm looking at those Sino-Swahili identities. So this history But there's a shipwreck off the coast. It hasn't been discovered. The Chinese are still working with Kenyan authorities to get to see whether they can actually locate the shipwreck. So there are shipwrecks in this sea. There is memory. Even as we are living now, we are acting back through history. The history in the sea affects us. There is violence, and when you think of the time now, right now. The other day I watched video that was being purported to have been sent by Iran, and Iran has taken, these images of American warships on the Indian Ocean. So there is violence, even if sometimes it's beneath the surface, it's brewing. There are pirates, like Somali pirates, who are really, well, right now maybe it has reduced, but there was a time when it was really a big problem on those seas. This is like a floating world, you know. It has agency, it has history, it even has ghosts in this sea. So when we are thinking of the sea as it is now, we are also thinking about the history, and we should also be thinking about the future. I don't know whether I've answered you or it's just rambling here.
Yeah. So the second, I did ask a question. So the second part of my question is just to, I don't know if it's sort of like source that you're using, but I'm just very curious if probably in local context like cultural rituals or proverbs, songs or whatever. How do you specific locations like study? How do they qualify the ocean? How do they qualify for the water? For example, I'm familiar with Southwestern Nigeria, especially the Yoruba cultural group. There's always like proverbs or sayings that talks about how the ocean accepts things and how the ocean does not accept things. How the ocean push out, there. Or how do just all these part of it, attributes of the ocean. So I'm curious, like,
Yes.
that things that you're also really considering. What sort of ritual archives are you have?
I am glad you mentioned Proverbs because, like, a word starts every um, chapter with a quote that goes back to maybe the ocean and how it relates with the people. For example, where penye shwari na pepo upo, that's Swahili. Translated, where there is calm, there is also a storm, and I've talked so much about storms. So, like, every chapter begins with either a saying or a proverb that even if it doesn't directly um relate to the sea, it relates to be, living, acting. So for example, yapitayo hayageukani, yajayo hayaelimiki. The past cannot be changed, the future cannot be known. So like every other chapter has some wisdom, some ancient wisdom, living wisdom that is drawn as the focal point where we start reading that chapter. So and there are many, but the Swahili are maritime culture, so their language, their culture has this has always been associated with the ocean, and they are actually considered like I would say multicultural because they have related the Indians, the Arabs. The Arabs are known most, and this aspect of relationship with the Chinese is something that is not well like investigated, and that's part of what I'm doing for my PhD research.
Okay, thank you so much, Rachel. Just to also further from where the recent speaker ended, so I also want to ask a question in regards to the cultural aspect of water. So I want to know if in Kenya and East African generally, if we have custodians of water bodies, right? So just as we have in this part of the world, particularly among the Yorubas, we have the Olukun, Oloshun, and all that, who of course are the custodians of water bodies. I want to know if we have custodians of water bodies out there, and of course, how they also relate with border wordies as well?
We have people who, humans who have special abilities. Like I talked of the shipbuilder Mehidi, if necessary. And he also makes boats and um, burns them with fire so that they can remember fire and drowning. So embedding knowledge into that boat, like it's a living thing. It has a memory. It can remember. We also have the ocean spirits, and the Swahili, because of relating with Arabia and Islam, they have beliefs in jinns or genies, and they're genies in the ocean, and they speak. They can also possess you. For example, Ayana is very careful, listens to them, sometimes even, replies, but she refuses possession. So I wouldn't say like there's a God that is in charge of the oceans and related um, spaces, but they're actually like spirits, and they are people who have the ability to summon like forces within the ocean.
Okay, thank you. So also going further, in terms of the methodology beyond the text, which of course the dragons fly, do you also have opportunity to speak with the author to critique what she was thinking when she was putting this text together and how that can help you in your own research? Do you have that opportunity as well?
I have not had that opportunity, but I am traveling to Kenya sometimes for my research, and I plan to meet with Owol, whether virtually or face to face, if we should be in Nairobi. And I will chat with her, because what I'm doing is I'm doing ethnographic research on Pate Island and Mombasa, where there's these Chinese, Swahili Chinese descendants. And then I will also compare and contrast, fiction, how these identities are portrayed in fiction, and the living identities of the people like Mwamaka, who I've mentioned, went to China, is the Ayana in the story, went to China. Her mother is, well, the stories are different because Mwamaka was not born out of wedlock, which is a big deal in Chinese culture, which led to ostracization of the mother and daughter as well. But yeah, I will meet with War and get to interview her.
Thank you so very much. Do we still have any other question? Okay, please go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you so much for your presentation. I really enjoyed the way that you have sort of laid out for us how you're approaching this work. I hadn't read this book, and now I'm really excited to read it. Just thinking with some of the questions here, I know you talked about how you're engaging with like the more than human. I wanted to ask if you could speak a bit to any tensions that you see between the theorization, the sort of origination and development of more of the human theory, with the way that you're also seeking to engage with, for example, like local ways of knowing in the Kenyan East African context.
Some of it, you please come up again.
Yes, yes.
Yes, good morning. Thank you again for your presentation. This was really rich and enjoyable. I hadn't heard of this book before, and I very much look forward to reading it. I wanted to ask.
Please too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, yes.
Yeah, it is.
I wanted to ask about any, you talked about how in your presentation you're engaging with this work, thinking about the more than human theory, and thinking also with some of the questions that you were asked here. I'm wondering if you could talk a bit about some of the tensions or how you're working between, like, there's more than human, which is sort of coming from a more Western framework, and then how you're also engaging with very rightly, like local ways of knowing in the Kenyan, East African context or other African contexts. Yeah.
Well, like I said, we are trying to reframe the Indian Ocean, not from a Eurocentric or Asian-centric naming. For example, the Indian Ocean, more naming it with foregrounding India, whereas it spans this large area and it also affects these very many communities. So there has been a renaming or an attempt at renaming because it hasn't really caught up. So there are people who call this Indian Ocean the Afrasian Sea, recognizing that we have Africa and we have Asia as well. Or a world is fond of calling them the Swahili seas, which is understandable. I would think that this renaming is also like forgetting that it's not just the Swahili, the other, communities, the other histories that are involved. So the idea that there is tension, of course, with the violence that I alluded to, indicates that there has always been tension from the time of empire building to today, as we are speaking. The Indian Ocean is a site of violence and tension. And I'm thinking of, for example, the other day, I'm following up what's happening on the islands. It's a collection of islands. And there was this billboard that is asking the people to report a Somali, what would I say, terrorist. Because even in the story, there's a terrorist who comes to Pate Island, hides there, marries, nobody knows about it. Then he disappears just one day, which is also something that has happened. It's not like a war is talking about things that have not happened. So there will always be tension, and not just with humans, and even with non-human. And when you think of the ship, I talked about the ship that took Ayana from Pate to China. It died a political death because the Chinese authorities felt that Lai Jing, the captain of the ship, was not obeying. There were some animals that had been trafficked, and they died during the storm, and he threw them away. So that did not sit very well with the Chinese authorities, and they ended up banning the ship. So it died a political death. So when we are thinking of tension, we're not just thinking of tension between the humans, tension between even the naming of this space, this character that we're calling the Indian Ocean Sea. We're also thinking of tension between humans and non-humans that is ongoing. And we don't know what the future holds, but we know that this is some tension that will continue being there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other question? So Rachel, thank you so much for your time, and we really appreciate your people and the responses you've given to us. So thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. So thank you. Unfortunately, we do not have other presenters available, so I want to use the opportunity to invite you to this second part of this panel that is coming up 11 a.m. I think at room B311, B312, right? So, and you can be rest assured that we have presenters already. Yeah. At least we have presenters around for that. So it won't be as scanty as this. I'm very sorry. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. And again, the chair unavoidably absent, right? So it's meant to be chaired by Professor Lin. Of course, I'm the organizer of the panel, but the panel ought to be chaired by Professor Lin, but she reached out to me this morning. The crisis around the world affected our school back in Ben Gurion, and she had to rally around our students. So that's why she couldn't be part of this panel.
Mm.
Thank you.
And you're
Yeah.
an organizer,
Yes.
so you also work in this area. I'm very.
Exactly. So my one has to do with what I was speaking to my research and the next part. Thank you. Thank you. Looking forward to see you there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Of course, you have to end it because we don't have anybody. You're welcome. Thank you.